welcome here to another NSRA Duracell Next Gen Cup Series podcast as we are getting stuff set here for Season 8 already of Duracell competition. I know that still we're in the middle of Season 7, but stuff is currently in the works in getting prepared for Season 8. Just so that we are far enough ahead that if God forbid, something happens in the near future. I've got a bunch of stuff all lined up for you guys, and we don't end up falling behind. So I'm not exactly certain where we ended off as far as the this past weekend. I know Dover went live not too terribly long ago. Might have been this past weekend. It might have been the weekend before. I'm not exactly sure where we are on the schedule. I can tell you though that the final race of the season, the race weekend at Michigan, has been recorded, has been edited, has been uploaded. It is scheduled and ready to go. So the champions have already been determined. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil nothing, but I'm just letting you know that those races have been recorded and are done. The Duracell Ultra Light Series champion will be determined on Saturday, July 27th. And the Next Gen Cup Series champion will be determined on Sunday, July 28th. So we're looking another 4 months until we're actually going to know who the champions are going to be. I'm not going to put any indicator of who the champions were, etc., on any of the lists that I've got or anything like that. Um, I'm going to keep it as vague as I possibly can so that way you don't have a clue who it is. So I will be more than likely just referring to on like lists and stuff as Season 1 Duracell Ultra Light Series Champion. I will not have them by name. I will be doing no indicating of who the champion was for the Duracell Cup Series. You're not going to know until July. It's just as simple as that. But I can tell you this. You're going to want to tune in down this home stretch. The playoffs were really fun to observe and record for Cup Series, and the battle down the stretch for Lights was really good as well. All right, so what are we talking about here in this podcast today? A couple of things that we're going to be talking about, mostly in regards to the Cup Series, but we are also going to be talking about the Light Series, and you guys are going to get an input into some of the things that the Duracell Ultra Light Series is going to be next season. It's going to be slightly different from what it was, or what it is, I should say, this season. I say was in the past tense because I've already run the entire schedule. We'll keep it in the present tense since we are in the middle of the season for both respective series. But it is going to be different in regards to a couple of things. Number one, we're going to hopefully end up having a bigger lights field. This season, we have had between 20 to 21 drivers starting every single race. There has been the opportunity, I said this, I think it was in the first couple of races for lights, that if other people wanted to sign up, they could during the course of the season. Skylar Taylor, I think, was the only driver who took me up on that offer and ended up getting in, what was it, 6 races into the schedule, something like that. Nobody else ended up signing up for a light series ride. Now, granted, unlikely, even the case here of Skylar Taylor being 6 races behind, that we're going to end up seeing Skylar Taylor battling for the championship, but you at least would have been able to get a ride like Skylar was. The main reason for Skylar not being in the championship battle is because we're running the old point system. So, the first thing I'm going to have you guys weigh in on, and if you're just watching this podcast after it's been live, if you're rewatching it back, you can weigh in this in the comments below. I keep track of the comments, so you can weigh in your opinion as well. Nothing will be absolutely established here today, but I want to get your guys' feedback of what you would like to see in the upcoming confirmed second season of Duracell Light. So let's talk about Lights. We're going to talk about Cup, but we'll talk about Lights first, then we'll move on to Cup. So in the Duracell Ultra Light series, we went with the mentality of the best driver winning the championship and getting the automatic locked in charter position into season 8 of Duracell Cup Series competition. So with that, we did a system, no playoffs. We had 20 races on the schedule, so there was the likelihood we could do a playoff system, whether it be run 10 regular season races, 10 playoff races. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. We could maybe do 13 regular season races and 7 playoff races with 3 races in the first round, 3 races in the second round, and then a finale race. Okay, so we're splitting it about two thirds, one third. We could then maybe do a 15 race regular season and then a 5 race playoff with 2 races in 2 rounds and then a finale. Okay, there were scenarios where we could have done a playoff system, but with the mentality of best and most consistent driver that accumulates the most points through the entire 20 races winning the championship, that was basically the goal of making it important for a driver to not only get victories but also remain consistent through the year. I'm going to let you guys weigh in on this for an opinion. Would you like to see the old point system again in season 2 of the Duracell Ultralight series, or would you like to see a playoff system implemented? There is the possibility that we may end up extending the schedule amount for lights, potentially from 20 to 25 races. So that would open up the option for potentially a playoffs system. And I'm not necessarily certain if we would follow the same criteria that we have this season for Duracell Cup, which is the top 10 in the point standings are automatically locked in, regardless of if they have a win or not. We'll be getting to that point of the season here when the playoffs begin. You'll see how this new playoff system works. Top 10 in points get locked in, and then 6 drivers that are outside of the top 10 get in via wild card, which would be highest outside of the top 10 with victories. Obviously, 4 or 5 wins if we end up getting that high would get the number 1 or 2 seed, then 3 wins, then 2 wins, then it would go to the order of one-time winners. Would you want to see a playoff system like that? Would you want to just see a win and you're in playoff system? Would you like to see just top 10 in points? Not a win and you're in system, just top 10 in points end up getting into the playoffs. You know, let me know what you'd like to see, and we'll take opinions and everything, and I'll try and culminate them all into a system. We already looks like we got somebody weighing in. Jack Mitchell, nice to see you, Jack. A mini playoffs is a lot better. Could introduce a point system where it's not win and in. Okay, so not necessarily focusing as much on the checkered flags, but as on consistency, and that garners you a playoff position. Okay, we'll take that into consideration. We'll try and see if that's something that we can do. Um, Another thing for the light series as well is when I look at the lights schedule, there is some diversity in terms of the tracks that we have already run and are planning to run here in the future. There are going to be a couple of changes because I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Uh, Duracell Lights, Duracell Cup, they're going to undergo certain changes of tracks being taken out because unfortunately they didn't really work out. There's actually a race later on in the season. This is a spoiler, not really a spoiler, but there is going to be a track where there will be a change. It was originally we were supposed to run Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I did testing at that racetrack. It was amazing. A lot of passing all the way through the field. And then we got to pit stops, and a bunch of the AI, for some reason, decided they didn't want to make it onto pit road. They would miss the entrance to pit road. They would then be scraping against the wall down the front straightaway, trying to still pit. It was a mess. Unfortunately, I don't know if maybe I can find another version of Canadian Tire Motorsports Park where the pit stops can actually take place, because the racing, I'm going to tell you, was really, really good. But unfortunately, because at that point I wasn't able to find a new track for that, we ended up instead going to another debuting track, which I think is going to come back on the Season 8 schedule, Hanford Speedway. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that racetrack. It was an old racetrack back in the day that the IndyCar used to run at. I'm trying to remember. I think it was back in the 60s or the 70s. I ran it in an online race. Was very intrigued by it. It's kind of like a miniature Pocono in a way. And I thought, you know what? I wonder what offline would look like on here, how well they would run. And the racing was actually really good. But I'm kind of heartbroken the fact that Canadian Tire was not able to be on the schedule. So, You guys will see that change during the playoffs later on here during the season. But going back to the schedule for Duracell lights, most of the racetracks, for the most part, were okay. I felt like it for some reason, and maybe it's just because it was lights and it was ARCA, and it seemed to make a lot of sense because you look at ARCA in the actual ARCA Menard series, and you have some mile and a half, some 2 mile racetracks, but it's mostly comprised of short tracks, the shorter racetracks. And there are a lot of short tracks that were on the schedule here this season. North Wilkesboro, Lucas Oil, Devil's Bowl, a dirt track. That's a short track. Pepsi Superdome, Dover Mile Racetrack, Stafford, Bristol Dirt, um, Gateway, Boston International, that will be later on here in the season. Shorter configured racetracks. I'm thinking maybe we end up doing maybe a little bit more diverse uh schedule, maybe have a lot more double headers with the Cup Series. I think I'm trying to remember here. I believe let me just do a quick count here. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Looks like 13 out of the 20 races that we have run and are running here on the light schedule are double headering with weekends on the Cup Series. Would you want to see more of that? Because there are some good racetracks that we are at on the Duracell side, on the Cup Series side, that we are not necessarily at on the light series side. A couple of let me just bring up the season 7 schedule. A couple of tracks that maybe could fit in there that could bring about some good racing. Texas Motor Speedway is a track that we don't go to. Darlington. We didn't have Darlington on the light schedule. Would you guys like to see Darlington on the light schedule? Maybe have a throwback race for the lights cars as well as the Cup cars. Um, New Hampshire. I believe didn't do a doubleheader there. Watkins Glen. Very traditional road course. Track that maybe we could end up doing. Some racetracks there in the playoffs, like Arizona Speedway, Hillside Speedway, Rockingham is another historical racetrack that we didn't doublehead with. There's Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, maybe if you guys wanted, we could do the lights at the Indy Road Course and the Cup drivers on the Speedway configuration, something like that. Throne of Games 500. Yeah, I mean, yeah, a callback for sure. We could do something like that, maybe just for the lights drivers potentially, or do that for the Cup driver. Bring that back for the Cup drivers. Maybe do the Throne of Games 500 for the Cup cars, and then throwback schemes for the lights drivers. There's a whole bunch of different stuff that we could end up doing with that. And a big reason why, again, why are we talking about season 8 when season 7 is not even halfway through? Prior planning gets us all in line in preparation for next season. Then we don't have to spend an entire month and a half, 2 months trying to figure that out. You guys are able to have the flow of one season directly into the next season. Texas Worldwide. Okay, that's an interesting racetrack. I have not run that track online, offline, what have you, in quite a long time. I don't know what it does for AI, but I can definitely look into that racetrack and see what it is capable of doing. More double headers, good idea. Okay. Happen to settle on which Xfinity mod the lights are going to be using next season. Yes. That has actually been determined. It's going to be the NXS 20 mod. Now, one thing that I am kind of bouncing around back and forth is, be perfectly honest, the CTS physics for any type of mod usually bring about the better racing and offline because of the fact they are a draft compatible type physics. With that being said, I don't know if this really is all that important for you guys to know, but the next gen series runs with CTS physics. It does not run with the Cup physics. Now, the Light series actually is running this year with Cup physics. But if we made the transition over to um, the NXS20 mod, we may not necessarily run the GNS physics, we may run the CTS physics. Another reason why I like the CTS physics is because it does a little bit more in terms of tire wear and fuel consumption than cup physics do. That then means that we end up having more passing if we get into a long run. It also means that pit stops would more than likely come into play in terms of strategy. So, with that being said, I would than likely lean towards the CTS physics for the NXS20 mod than I would with the GNS. Now, granted, GNS also has its fall off as well, it's just not as prevalent, not as much as the CTS physics does. Its cup does not have nearly as much, then more for GNS, and then a lot more for CTS. So, I probably, before I make a determination on that, I would test with both the mods at particular racetracks, see if there is a difference or not in terms of the racing, and see which one ends up being better in terms of viewing. So, that's something that I'll kind of jot down and experiment with, and, we may end up having an official announcement on what physics it will be in the next podcast. Uh, so, in terms of light series, we're gonna more than likely expand the schedule. We're gonna, as you guys are doing here in the chat, which I love, give me suggestions of tracks to try and test out, see if they're available, because there are some racetracks that are on the light schedule, and there's some racetracks that are on the cup schedule as well that are probably going to get the X. They were good for one season to test out, give it a go. I don't think they're coming back. Two of them are a track that we've already had the broadcast of, and then a track that we are yet to have the broadcast of. I think that's coming up in 3 weeks' time, if I'm not mistaken. A couple of road courses. One of them is Mid Ohio, the other one is Suzuka. We ran the doubleheader Mid Ohio with Lights and Cup. We're going to be running a doubleheader with Lights and Cup at Suzuka. The problem with both of those racetracks, the biggest issue that I had with both of them is the fact that unfortunately there is no version out there that holds 42 cars. So you guys saw it back at Mid Ohio. Obviously, we didn't have to worry about it with lights because we were underneath, I think it was the 39 maximum car field that it can hold. But that ended up meaning that a couple of drivers missed out. Maybe it was 36. Maybe it's 36 drivers that it only held. But we ended up obviously having a bunch of drivers miss out on Mid Ohio. Granted, we had non-charter drivers, but during the course of this season, we're going to see when we end up getting 3, 4, 5, 6 non-charter drivers showing up each week, there's going to be 3 or 4 that are going to go home. That's typical. But we ended up at Mid Ohio having chartered drivers that missed out on the race as well. I don't want that to happen. The problem for me is when I added in Mid Ohio and Suzuka, the main reason for that was because I felt like there really weren't a lot of road courses on the schedule. And I like to diversify between speedways, short tracks, road courses, super speedways. That way there's a mix. Another track that was added, well, not added on this season, but last season was Chatham. And it brought about a somewhat decent race last season. This season, it's going to be dirt physics. But in hindsight, looking back at that race, while it was good, I'm not necessarily certain that it was a good enough race for it to return on the schedule. So we're looking here at potentially at least two, if not three road courses that are bound for the chopping block. 36 drivers. Okay, I thought it was 36 because I remember there were like four. I think it was four chartered drivers that failed to qualify, and we're going to have the same scenario at Suzuka because I think Suzuka only holds a maximum of something like 24, 26 drivers or something like that at a time. It's unfortunate in that regard. So the big problem here is let's consider the fact that we take out Mid Ohio, we take out Suzuka, we take out Chatham. What are we left with in terms of road courses? Well, if we go based off of the schedule for season 7, Mid Ohio was the only road course that we had in the first half of the regular season. Second half of the regular season, we had Suzuka and Watkins Glen. Well, Watkins Glen's staying. Watkins Glen's always been a good racetrack. And then in the playoffs, Chatham Dirt, which we're talking about taking that off the schedule, and as I said earlier, was supposed to be Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. That had issues with pit road, and so Hanford replaced it. So at the end of the day, we only had 5 road courses on the season 7 schedule, and now 3 of them potentially gone. Sonoma, we got Reggie suggesting Sonoma. Okay, so a big thing with Sonoma was, I don't know how many of you will remember, but back in season 6, we ran Sonoma. And I'm pretty sure that's where Nick Gunther and Mazda made history and got the first win in Duracell Cup Series history. It was a wreck fest. It was a total wreck fest. I have yet to arrive on a combination when it comes to Sonoma of it either being not a snooze fest or a wreck fest. I have not been able to find that in between of good racing where passing is available, strategy comes into play, and we don't end up having half the field torn up by the end of it. If I could find a combination, find a racetrack that would be able to bring that about, then absolutely I would welcome Sonoma back on the schedule. Now, I do know there are a couple of new Sonoma versions that have been put out. One of them has been by Area 23 Designs. I'm gonna have to look at that. I know I'm not sure if it's an actual new racetrack or if it's a reskin of an old racetrack. I'm gonna have to look into that potentially if it's got what I'm looking for, then we may end up seeing Sonoma come back on the schedule. Other racetracks that I looked into Montreal. I'm not really certain that Montreal really brought about all that great of racing in testing. I considered bringing back, it's called Wheels of Fire, but we used to call it Champs-Élysées. The bad part about that particular racetrack was the camera angles are horrible when they get to the last straight before the final corner. You have to go into helicopter view because you can't see them from behind the grandstands. Now, granted, I could probably turn off objects and you could probably see them then. I'm not sure if there's a hill back there that would block the view, but um, that was a possibility, but the camera angles kind of throw that out of the window. I considered maybe we going to Coda. I didn't know if that would necessarily be a good racetrack or not. I've put a little bit of preliminary testing into that racetrack, not a whole lot, but maybe Circuit of the Americas could be a possibility that we could have on the schedule. Nazareth is Nazareth's not a road course though, is it? I think they had a road course configuration, but isn't Nazareth just a speedway? I'd have to look into that. I can't remember if Nazareth is actually a. Yeah, Coda would be fun if I could make it work. Yeah, I think it could be. I don't remember. I think Coda holds 42 cars. I'd have to double check on that. But probably can't be any worse than Mid Ohio, and we couldn't hold 42 cars on Mid Ohio. So, um, Chicago Street Course. Have I looked at that? I have. I have looked at the Chicago Street Course. In every thing that I've tested for Chicago Street Course, there are 2 areas that the AI do not like. One of them is, I believe it's turn 5. No, I gotta remember the corners in my head. I can't remember what that one corner was that Noah Gregson kept running into. That was either turn 4 or turn 6. The next corner after, whether it be turn 5 or turn 7, that particular area, there is a split in the racetrack where there is the outside wall on the left, there's the inside wall on the right, and then there's a center wall for safety vehicles to be able to be parked into. And for some particular reason, the AI like to run into that center wall. Also, the semicircular turn, I think it's about like 3 corners before the last turn. The semicircular left-hand turn, I don't know if they go around a fountain there or something, but that particular corner, the AI like to hit that wall, spin out, and then they blockade the entire racetrack. So I feel like there is potential for the Chicago Street Course. I'd have to do more testing. Again, it's the same kind of thing with Coda. I just got to put in the work into testing out the racetracks. But again, that's why I like to do this, so that way I'm bouncing off the ideas. You guys are giving your opinions. It's giving me something to do in terms of preparation for next season, doing this testing with these particular racetracks that you would like to see on the schedule. So, Circuit of the Americas and Chicago Street Course, I'll put in some more work into testing those racetracks, see if they're viable, and maybe they will appear on the Duracell Cup Series schedule at least, and potentially maybe see one or both on the Duracell Ultra Light Series schedule. Uh, so a couple of things there that we're looking into potentially for next season of Duracell Ultralights. There is, for those that are interested in looking into it, next season Duracell Ultralight series moving over to the NXS 20 mod. I'm gonna bring this up here. This is the current roster. There's going to be more that will obviously be added in. We've had a number of people that have gotten in touch with me about opening up teams and whatnot. So as of the moment, these are cars that are going to be fielded next season for Duracell Ultra Lights Talladega Night Race. Uh We ended up and not having Talladega on the schedule this season. Talladega was on the schedule last season. This season, we ended up bringing Daytona back for a night race actually during the playoffs, and the race was actually really good. So I don't know if Talladega will be on the schedule next season. If anything, as of right now, Talladega could. I make this in a huge air quotes could replace M&M's or Coca-Cola Superspeedway on the schedule next year. If not, it may end up being potentially just a superspeedway that the lights drivers go to. We'll have to wait and see about that one. But the Daytona night race was actually really, really good during the playoffs, so that will probably stay there. So we'll actually go to Daytona twice, which is the first time we've actually done that since the inception of this series. It's only ever been Daytona once. If Charter and Cup is approved, imagine you'd have to leave the lights ride. Yes, you would have to leave the lights ride. The only way that you would be able to be in a lights ride, which you'll kind of see here on the roster for lights drivers, you'll notice that RJ Bishop, he's a full timer in Cup, but he's going to be running an all star car and is not running for lights points. So he'll be running in an all star car in the 16, which will be fielded occasionally. It's not going to be running every race. And then same deal here for the 55 car out of Garage 55. Anthony McCurry, Nick Gunther, couple of full timers. They are going to sorry, I was just reading something here. They are going to be running occasional races in I believe it's a fourth entry out of Garage 55 occasionally, but they won't be running for lights points either. So you could run a part-time schedule in lights. You wouldn't obviously be eligible for lights points if indeed you get the Cup charter. You may have noticed down the description of this thing as well. 11 split driver car. Yeah, I mean, hey, you know, that's something you could potentially do. I think in Cup for next season, at least 4 drivers are going to be splitting some time in the fourth entry at Blue Oval Automotive. Jordan Lopez, Jose Mills, Trey Wright, and Chris Dollerton, all former drivers for that team. Dollerton's going to be not running full time anymore. Jordan Lopez and Trey Wright, they haven't been full time since I think it was season 5. And Jose Mills, apparently we've heard nothing about him coming back for next season, so he would end up running part-time as well. So it's kind of like the all-star car, if you will, for Blue Oval Automotive with a bunch of drivers that have formerly driven for them. So also, I'll just give this warning here. In a little bit, we're going to be announcing right here on this podcast who the charter drivers are going to be. We ended up having a video posted a little while ago about people submitting for charters for the Cup Series. We will be making the announcements of those drivers during this podcast, so stay tuned. Um, you and another driver are going to be sharing the 11. You're going to be splitting the 11 car. Oh, okay. Okay, I get you. All right, so I'll just slot your name in there, and then you can let me know who that other driver is at some point. Okay, so um, another thing too, I'm gonna be looking into like different manufacturers and whatnot because I know a lot of them were made, custom ones were made for NXS 20. Right now, we got Toyota Camrys, Ford Mustangs, Chevy Camaros, and we do have a Mazda MX-5 for that particular mod. So, if there are like other manufacturers and whatnot that when you're fielding rides and whatnot, that you want, let me know. I'll look into it, see if those are available. So, let's jump over to the Cup Series. We are going to be also in just a little bit, after we make the announcements and whatnot, we are going to be showing you some of the cars you will be seeing on track next season. I've been hard at work in the painting booth, and a bunch of rides have been put together, a bunch of schemes have been put together in correlation to drivers and the particular teams that they are running for next season. So, uh, based off the fact that I have finished recording and everything is now kind of set in stone as far as who is returning, who is not. Um, the rumor, I guess we could say, about Evans Motorsports closing up, that is confirmed. So, we are actually going to, right here, right now, take and delete out the 6, the 65, and the 66 because those rides are not returning. The big reason, the main person that was owning the race team, it was a split team. Your team is Toyota for the lightsaber. Okay. But let me change all that here. Try and type and talk at the same time. I'm not very good when it comes to multitasking. Um, the one of the two main owners of uh, Evans Motorsports ended up getting removed from the series. And then the other side of it, Rob Evans has, I'm assuming, not had any interest in following and keeping track of the team and everything. So, didn't make much sense for there to be an organization out there where, there wasn't administrative interest. So, the team closes up and 3 charters are available. Those 3 charters up for grabs. They were applied for in the Google Forms. We're going to be having the announcement of them in just a minute. Let me see if I can I delete this row? I can. Look at that. And we'll do the same with these two. Uh-oh. That was not what I meant to do. Whew, that was close. Delete row and delete row. Okay, so, uh, so I have these for sales here. These are actually not really for sale. It was just because we weren't certain if drivers were going to be returning or not. So we could take these off. Also, next podcast, we will more than likely have an announcement date of when signups will be for these particular rides. Because based off the amount of time that drivers had to be able to confirm if they were returning back for season 8 or not, and no word being received, they now will have to, in order to get those rides back, if they so choose, they're going to have to do it in the signups. So the rides that we know are going to be open next season are going to be the 12 out of Young Motorsports. Some news out of that camp with the fact that Destin Bolin is returning, but he's going to be in the 11 team with it rebranded to the 02, moving out of the 12, and then the 12 will be open for another driver to be able to fill in. The 24 out of Northeast Motorsports, the 33 out of Michael Norman Motorsports, the 38, that's a big one. Because now, Jose Mills, the most winners driver in the Duracell Cup Series, might be in danger of not being that, either here by the end of this season or season 8. Jose Mills not returning. One of our, well, I guess we could say one of our elder statesmen of Duracell Next Gen Cup Series competition. He's been here since the start. The 45 and the 46. So no word from Reese Banks, who was a Talladega winner last year in the 44 for a second full-time season this season, and Casey Hoyt, who we've seen on a bit of a tear as of late. He has two victories. Yeah, two victories at Manassas and Coke Zero Super Speedway so far this year. He has not expressed that he's returning either, so it looks like it's going to be a one and done season for that rookie. So the 44 and the 74 will end up being renumbered to the 45 and the 46, giving it a three-car in order numbering of 45, 46, and 47 with team owner Jesse Turner, who is returning to his ride. Not Ryan Acosta. Let's try that one again. Ryan Butcher. That's another big one. Driver that we've had ever since the first season of Duracell Cup Series competition. I remember him driving the number 24 back in season 1. Went to victory lane, if I recall correctly, at Pensacola Road Course. And he has not announced coming back. His teammates Laura Chung and Ryan Brommer have. They're back in the 77 and the 87. But Ryan Butcher looks like he is not going to be returning next season. So the 78 car out of Auto Junction Racing will end up being available for a new driver. And then everybody else down here has all confirmed that they are returning, some full-time, some in a part-time capacity. You look at Autumn Brooks, Ralph Mason out of Garage 55. They'll be running select races. The 82 out of Louisville Automotive with Mills and Dollarton. Trey Wright, Jordan Lopez, a bunch of former Louisville Automotive drivers. Of course, Dollarton and Lopez, former champions. They'll be running select races at different racetracks. Charles Belding's actually going to be attempting the Daytona 500 in the number 91 out of Fortnite Squad Racing. That team moving over to Toyotas next year. You'll see a couple of those, well, quite a few of those Toyotas in the paint scheme preview here coming up in just a little bit. Let me see if there's any other part-timers here. I don't think there are. No, I don't think there's any other part-timers that have been announced as of yet. Obviously, the part-timers are going to be under non-charter because what's the point of having a charter for them if they're not running the full season? Okay, I've kept you in suspense long enough. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So, we have had, I believe, total of 7 submissions to apply for a charter here this season. I have looked into the scenarios of those that have applied in regards to the past, the present, and the upcoming new season. 3 charters at this point up for grabs. They are the 3 charters left vacant by the 3 entries fielded out of Evans Motorsports. For those that are wondering, what about Zachary Fitzwater's charter? Well, he's got the charter that the 83 team has at Louisville Automotive, the team that he's moving to in Season 8. So that's why he is still good to go, and there are those 3 charters remaining. We did have one driver apply for a charter who was already part of this roster from this Season 7 roster, Destin Bolin, so that is why he is in the 0-2, because apparently he didn't see the video of keeping your charter, keeping your ride for next season, so I applied that as him keeping his ride, so no charter ended up giving out to him. He already had that one still with Young Motorsports. So who ends up getting the 3 charters? Well, they are as follows. First off, we have a driver that this season is running in a non-charter capacity, but he is a full-time driver, and that's going to be the number 4 of Kyler Sustre. Sustre will have a charter for next season, so we're going to fill in the number 4. He we'll say for all rights and purposes, he's going to that he'll have the number 6 charter for next season, formerly the charter owned by Evans Motorsports that fielded Zach Rogers. Second one that is going to be getting a charter is going to be a driver that has run full time this season. Near the end of the year, starting at Auto Club, he's going to be moving over and running the rest of that season with the team that he will be running full time with in season 8. And that is going to be Reggie Fogelman, who will be moving over to the number 5 for Haas Racing next year in a full time capacity. He will have a charter next year since he was not able to take the charter with him that he formerly had at Northeast Motorsports. And we're going to say that he has the number 65 charter from Evans Motorsports. And finally, last but not least, you take a look at who else we've got here on the no charter roster. You've got the 60 out of Garage 55, you've got the 82 out of Blue Oval Automotive, and you've got the 91 out of Fortnite Squad Racing. Those are all running part-time, so there is no need for them to have a charter, and no charter was applied for. Jack Mitchell, who is planning on running full-time next season if he's able to get a charter, will be running full-time because he gets the third and final charter for Adrenaline Motorsports. So congratulations to Sustre, Fogelman, and Jack Mitchell. They will be chartered full-time drivers next year. Let me see, change the date on that one. And just to be clear for everybody that are wondering, yes, every single one of the people that are getting these charters did apply for them in the correct fashion on the Google form. So the 3 charters that were up for grabs go to Sustre. Now he'll be a full-time charter driver after spending all of this past previous season 7 as a non-charter full-time driver. Former winner this season as well, won at Las Vegas earlier on this season. Reggie Fogelman gonna be a full-time driver. I think it's gonna be the first time. I'm gonna have to check back and look. Uh, no, maybe I think it's. I think it. No, I think this is the second time because I think Brad Stover was a full-time second car out of Haas Racing back in what was it, season 4? I think it was. So this is I think the second time now that Haas Racing will have full-time cars. Now, granted, Matthew Rodriguez is running partial full-time with Haas Racing right now, the Daytona 500 winner. And then there's some other drivers that are filling in the 80 with him moving up to moving over to Bishop Family Racing for those races. But it's a non-charter car, so this is gonna be the first time that the 80, or at least the second entry out of Haas Racing, is going to be a chartered vehicle since I think season 4. And then Jack Mitchell coming back with Adrenaline Motorsports in the 01 car. Jack Mitchell, a former winner in Duracell Cup Series, a former playoff contender as well. So it'll be interesting to see what those 3 drivers are able to do next season. That means that all 40 charters are now done and accounted for each respective team. You'll have a couple of non-charter part-timers. There may be more that are added to the list during the course of this season that may attempt to make several races, may attempt to make just one race. I mean, in the case of Belding right now, only thing we know is he's attempting to make the Daytona 500. We may see him later on during the course of the season. There's some racetracks that we're going to that he's a former winner at. Who knows? He may pop up in some future dates, but as of right now, this is the roster that we have for the chartered entries for anybody that would want to get into a chartered ride. From this point on, you would have to sign up for any of the vacant rides here into next season. The 12, the 24, the 33, 38, 45, 46, and 78. And bear in mind that one of those rides will more than likely be gone by time the signups come around because our Duracell Ultra Light Series champion would end up filling one of those slots, since that is part of the reward they get for not only winning the championship, they end up getting a guaranteed chartered ride for season 8. So there's those announcements out of the way. And now we're going to show you a little bit of a taste of what to expect in next season. I'm looking forward to seeing these cars out on the racetrack all together because, of course, in the last announcement video, we ended up stating that we're going to be coming back with the next gen cars, but they're going to actually have the wings on them. And here you see a showcase of one of those cars with said wing. It's going to be interesting to see how they look, how that affects the car during the course of a race and wrecking. I don't necessarily know if that wing on the back is going to have the car potentially have more of a chance of a blowover. I mean, I can tell you that while it's all, for the most part, I think, visual and cosmetics, we did run an online race with the old COT that had the big wing on it from 2007 to 2008. Uh, when drivers got spun around, back end of the car caught air, so it might make things interesting aerodynamically for these cars during the course of next season. I had to go through a bunch of these cars and slightly redo them because the Dark Horse Ford Mustang is going to be making its debut in the Duracell Next Gen Cup Series next season. And the original Dark Horse template that I had the darker grille where you couldn't really see the Mustang um logo on the front. Somebody then released a better template that you can see the Ford Mustang logo on the hood or on the front and on the grille. And so I had to take all the Fords that I had previously painted and I had to move all those schemes over to the new template. But I think I finally have gotten that done. You're also going to see cars with the new 2024 Toyota XSE Camry template as well here as we cycle down through this list. There's a lot more paint schemes that I'm going to be doing. So this is just a preview of what has been completed so far. So Dylan Young gonna have Hooters back on his number 2, but he's gonna run the Night Owl scheme. We may end up having a daytime scheme as well, Hooters based scheme. That is not yet confirmed, and I haven't worked on it as of yet. Wawa coming back as well as a sponsor on the number 2. A little bit of a different look for that car here this time. This season, season 7, he's been running with yellow on the hood. Now the yellow is basically just subjected, easy for me to say, to the number and going mostly with the red and white. And then Coca-Cola coming back on the 2 car. He's going to have the Coca-Cola Racing theme on his number 2 machine starting in season 8. Get your new Smyrna one off just for that race for the first race. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Reggie. I've not run New Smyrna on a schedule ever that I can remember. Uh, you can find the templates and the car viewer files trying to paint for next season now. So, for these templates, all you really would have to do, Jack, is paint on the next gen mod and then send me the TGAs, and then I just make the rear wing. The wing is a PSD all of its own, and it's just a simple design the wing, put it on the TGA, and then that's basically how it works. So if you just design the car itself, I can then add the wing on afterwards when you have the TGA or the XCF, whatever the case may be, all designed up. So Cole Deaver gonna be in the Wheaties car again next season. He'll probably be running some other Dale Earnhardt Senior based cars during the course of the season. None of them confirmed as of yet. Still got to get in touch with him about those. Kyler Sustre gonna be a slightly different look from the purple and white that he's been running this season. Next season he'll be in a red, white, and blue Yamaha Mobile One car. There will more than likely be a couple of more paint schemes in regards to his number 4, which is now a chartered ride for next season, as is this car, Reggie Fogelman. A couple of schemes that he'll be running, the Hyper Ice Toyota Camry, and also the Taco Bell Live Mas Toyota Camry. This car was fun to do. The combination of the black bricks with the neon pink was actually really, really cool. Matt Haas out of Haas Racing, the endurance karting sponsorship coming back next year as he's going to be on that new Toyota Camry. Dustin Bolin, we mentioned about the fact that he's moving from the 12 over to the 02 next season. Maxwell House Coffee going to be coming back. And this season, he's been running with Tony the Tiger and I believe it's just the Kellogg's car. Next season, Kellogg's is back, but it's the Frosted Flakes sponsorship on his 02. Just one of a couple of schemes we'll probably see for him. You guys saw me do a live stream where I painted up this car, Charles Sanford and Reese's coming back together in season 8. And then also another scheme for Sanford, the GoBowling.com Chevrolet. Been a while since he's had GoBowling.com as a sponsor on his race car. Nice to see that back on the former champions Chevrolet Camaro. Kyle Matthews with the Kings Island Chevrolet. Slightly different look from what he's been running here this season. The second half from the mid to the rear, pretty similar to what he's been running here in season 7, but featuring the Beast on the hood of his race car here, a roller coaster out of Kings Island. And we may see a couple of other Kings Island based schemes on his Chevrolet during the course of the year. Well, Fortnite Squad Racing is moving over to Toyota next season, and Carson Gum brings Fastenal over there with him from Chevy to Toyota. Carson Gum, a Chris Buescher fan. Buescher out of Prosper, Texas, and Carson Gum out of the state of Texas as well. So a Buescher fan with the 2024 Fastenal scheme that Buescher is currently running this year. NOAA also coming over to the number 19. Looks really good, I think, on a Toyota. And then Sharpie also making the jump over. A lot of people will recognize this paint scheme, old Kurt Busch paint scheme from, I think it was 2004, I think. Matt McIntyre going to be in the Pepsi Ford Mustang out of Michael Norman Motorsports. Oh, looks like there was a Mustang that I haven't swapped over to the new one yet, because that is the old front and definitely the old back as well. So I got to swap that car over, but that along with Mac Tools, and probably we'll see Mako's Mermaids as well on the 21 for season 8. Love this paint scheme for Michael Norman. The Pizza Hut Ford Mustang with the flames on it there. I was trying to come up with a different concept for the Pizza Hut car. Everything I came up with kind of looked rather bland, and then got the inspiration of let's try and do a little bit of fire theme on it, and this is what ended up happening. Trying to recall where I got the inspiration for this particular base. I've done a lot of like looking up of different car liveries and everything, and I don't remember where I got the inspiration for this one, but I love the way that it turned out. And then Michael Norman as well with a WWE car. I was talking with him a couple of nights ago, and I said, what other schemes would you like? And he said, I haven't run a WWE car in forever, so there you go. Then now forever WWE number 22 car. That'll be really flashy on the racetrack. You gotta think that's gonna run in a night race. Daytona night, that thing would look really good under the lights. Nathan Orman's going to be running a number of different schemes during the course of the season. This is the only one that I've gotten done for him so far. The Xbox One number 23. He's also going to be having Disney Plus. He'll also have Nike. He's been running those schemes during the course of Season 7. They'll be returning for Season 8 as well. Benjamin Miles, couple of schemes that he's got currently painted. The Hertz number 25. Kind of a reverse scheme in a way there. As most of his Hertz schemes in the past have been primarily yellow with the black and white accent. Now it is black with the yellow and white accent. May get a reverse scheme of this with the yellow base. We'll have to wait and see. And then the Napa auto parts paint scheme for Benjamin Miles. Also expect in the near future a Marriott scheme also. Daniel Voiles returning back to World NOS Racing. He's got the number 26 Double Stuff Oreo Dark Horse Mustang. Coke Zero Sugar will also be another primary sponsor that he'll have. That scheme has not been completed as of yet. Joshua Osborne coming back for a third full-time season. Got a victory back in his first rookie season at Pocono. So far winless this season in Duracell Season 7. But he'll have Walmart as the new primary sponsor on his number 27 at Joanne Atwood Motorsports. Caleb Fogler will have Busch Gardens back on board his number 28, the former champion from Season 5. Another scheme he'll have will be Bible Broadcasting Network, which that scheme is about halfway done, but it's not yet been completed. Dylan Poteet, Castrol Edge sponsorship, moving over from the Chevrolet to the Toyota Camry with him next season. I don't know why, but I like the scheme better on the Toyota than I do on the Chevrolet. Kind of weird. He'll have Bass Pro Shops as well as a primary sponsor next season. Kind of a little bit of a Noah Gragson inspired look on his number 31. I love the chrome of the silver there with the matte black. And then also Mountain Dew, a primary sponsor for him next season. And people will recognize this, the AJ Allmendinger scheme that Allmendinger's going to be running at Bristol. Pote going to have the Cheetos Mountain Dew. Probably have another Mountain Dew car in due course fielded on his number 31 machine. Also, Jesse Turner, very familiar U.S. Air Force red, white, and blue scheme with the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds sponsorship on his number 47. Old Spice, I believe, is going to be another primary sponsor of his. We'll see if there's going to be any others that'll be announced during the course of the next couple of weeks. Austin LaPlante, how about this car? A little bit of graffiti for the Ally number 48 Chevrolet. This car was a lot of fun to do. He had this kind of color scheme last season, but this season, very busy race car, but the 48 and the sponsors stand out very well on it. Love this race car. Cannot wait to actually see it out on the racetrack. And then also, Jimmy Johnson fan, he'll have the Lowe's for Pros sponsored number 48 car next season. Quaker State, more than likely going to be a primary sponsor as well, but the Season 8 scheme has not yet been revealed. Nick Gunther, special scheme that he'll be running next season in the Mimniq 787B Mazda. Now going to be out of Garage 55 in Season 8 in conglomeration with Anthony McCurry and another third part-time car. But a special look here for the number 55 as he's got the celebrating 500 subscribers logo on the side of his machine. Well done to him. Congratulations on reaching 500 subscribers on his YouTube channel. And that'll be featured prominently on this car during the course of next season. Some other sponsors that we'll more than likely see featured as primaries for this car would include Schneider Electric, Polyphony Digital, and PEI Genesis. One of the three drivers announced that will be running part-time in the number 60 out of Garage 55. Autumn Brooks will be in the Spider-Man sponsored Mazda. Ralph Mason and Seth Cole also announced to be running some limited starts in that machine in a non-charter capacity. Anthony McCurry going to be back in a very familiar looking scheme that he's been running most of Season 7, the Celsius white, yellow, and black Mazda, but also going to be bringing Panda Express back as a primary sponsor on his machine. And potentially we may end up seeing Turkish Airlines coming back as a primary sponsor, as well as a Black Magic. I think it's Black Magic Design or something like that. Black Design Magic. I can't remember exactly what the sponsor is called. May end up seeing a second Celsius scheme as well for Anthony McCurry. James Qualls will have Castrol GTX coming back as his primary next season. James Qualls with victory at Dover just a couple of weeks ago that aired here on the channel. Laura Chung going to be staying with Auto Junction Racing in the number 77, but of course, that team moving to the 2024 Toyota Camry XSE. The Yahoo sponsorship. Sports Clip's going to be coming back as well. Netflix going to be a primary sponsor also. Those schemes yet to come. For those wondering, this is based off of inspiration of the John Hunter Nemechek paint scheme that he had when he drove the number 4 for Kyle Busch Motorsports. Zachary Fitzwater moving over to Blue Oval Automotive, a championship winning team that saw Jordan Lopez win the championship back in Season 4. Fitzwater moving from the defunct Evans Motorsports from Season 7 to Season 8. Will be a chartered ride, as this was formerly a chartered ride fielding Chris Dollerton in Season 7. He'll have Foster's moving over with him as a primary sponsor, as well as PurTech. New look on the PurTech car. This is, for those wondering, kind of based off of a V8 supercar base. Looks pretty cool. And then also, Jimmy John's going to be sponsoring him for a few races. So that's a look at the Jimmy John's number 83 that he will be piloting. Ryan Brommer makes his return back to the number 87, the Season 2 runner-up for the championship. He'll have Twix as one of his primary sponsors. Also, we'll have Mug Root Beer coming back as a primary sponsor as well. Maybe, just maybe, we'll end up seeing a couple more primary sponsors for him, as I believe those are really the only two cars that, the only two schemes, primary schemes that he's run during the course of Season 7. Connor Breton makes his return back to the number 88 out of Northeast Motorsports. He'll have Interstate Batteries, Vitamin Water, and Apple as his primary sponsors. A look at the Interstate Batteries scheme here. The other two sponsored cars still yet to be made. Quentin Moore comes back to the number 89. This will be his third full-time season, starting in Season 8, with Buc-ee's as the primary sponsor on that machine. We talked about Charles Belding. He'll be attempting to make the Daytona 500. That's the only scheduled race that he has been announced potentially to make in Season 8. He'll be in the 91, fielded out of Fortnite Squad Racing. Jessica Shelton in the number 94. Going to be back with the Project Dodge Intrepid out of S3 Motorsports. I think maybe this car with the rear wing looks maybe the best out of all the manufacturers. She's got McDonald's, Mac Tonight coming back as well, Coca-Cola C2, and last but not least, a little other throwback to Bill Elliott. Coors going to be coming on board with the 94 for select races. And last but not least, RJ Bishop. Going to be coming back for a third full-time season, I believe it is. Yeah, third full-time season. He was a part-time capacity back in Season 4. But Season 5, Season 6... Or no. Well, I guess we could consider him full-time in Season 5 when he was one of the drivers of the 2. So this would be his fourth full-time season, starting in Season 8. He'll be in the number 98 once again, sponsored by Monster, Kroger, along with Kraft Mac and Cheese on that machine, and Advent Health. Some schemes that we've, some sponsors at least, that we've seen him run during the course of this season. Going to be returning to the number 98 next season. So that is a look at the schemes that have currently been done. A lot more going to be in the works during the course of these upcoming weeks. And when we end up doing our next Duracell Next Gen Cup Series podcast, we will reveal those to you in due course. But that's going to do it here for this podcast. A lot of announcements made. Again, stay tuned for the upcoming podcast, because there are going to be some important things that will go down in that one. Specifically, there will be an announcement date for when signups will be taking place for Season 8 of Duracell Next Gen Cup Series competition. Again, if you want to field a team for the Duracell Ultra Light series next season, get in touch with me. I can set you up with what numbers are available, etc. Um, we're going to try and get as full a field as we possibly can for that one, since this season we're pretty much running with half a field in Duracell lights. And then, of course, as well, I'll be looking into a bunch of the suggestions that you've been giving me in the comments here, which I definitely appreciate. Try and see if there is a possibility of those being on the schedule. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, little teaser, maybe just maybe in the next podcast, we'll all work together on putting together part and maybe all of the lights schedule, and then maybe a little bit as well of what tracks could get replaced with what tracks on the cup schedule for next season. So stay tuned for that. Not certain when that podcast is going to be, so be sure to keep tuned here on this channel. If you're on your phone, I believe also if you're on your PC, there is a place where you can hit for to be notified whenever we end up going live on here. So I would suggest doing that if you want to be a part of the next podcast. But thank you all for tuning in. Congratulations to the drivers that were able to secure charters for Season 8. And of course, stay tuned for the next podcast when we announce when the other remaining open rides will be available via signups in the next couple of weeks, maybe in the next month or so. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Hope you guys continue to enjoy the inaugural season of the Duracell Ultra Light series and the 7th season of the Duracell Next Gen Cup series, as we are, I believe, nearing halfway, almost halfway through each of the respective schedules. We're not going to know who the champions are until we get to the end of July. July 27th is when the Lights finale is, July 28th when the Cup finale is, but we're getting everything all set up right now so that we were able to transition into Season 8 as quickly as possible once Season 7 comes to a close. Appreciate everybody's indulgence in all of that, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this podcast. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Have a great rest of your day, and enjoy the truck race tonight from Bristol and the Cup race tomorrow as well. Love that racetrack. Can't wait to see what it does in the daytime conditions in the Food City 500. But until next time, I'll see you guys later. Take care.